Science fiction has become a popular genre. What initially began as a niche for geeks alone has now taken the media world by storm, leading to the revival of quite a few sci-fi classics, like Doctor Who, as well as new IPs, some of which last several seasons while others last only one. So get your popcorn and tea. It's time we look at some must-watch sci-fi shows that did not last beyond a season. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Kolchak, the Nightstalker. Can we truly call this 1974 show a single-season hit? After all, in place of a pilot, it had two extremely popular television movies, with the first one being about a reporter investigating vampires in Las Vegas. This theme continued in the show, which is mainly episodic in nature and follows a specific beat. The reporter in the show, Carl Kolchak, gets involved in a supernatural plot with a bizarre but correct theory. After that, he tries to publish his work, but it doesn't work out because of how campy the style of writing in the story is. Despite being an object of ridicule among his peers and a pain in the neck for his editor, Kolchak keeps his job, something fans have often commented on. The show boasted of several great writers, including the one that would go on to create the Back to the Future trilogy. But like all good things, it ended because Darren McGavin asked to be released from his contract due to being disappointed with the quality of the scripts he was given, the rigorous shooting schedule, and his uncredited producing duties on the set. The show was essentially horror and comedy rolled into one, with Kolchak investigating the supernatural. There were also aspects of science fantasy and science fiction, such as the dead coming back as electric currents, something fans have often kept in mind. Perhaps it is these iconic moments that have pushed fans to call this a show that deserves a place in TV's Hall of Fame and needs to be appreciated more with time. Now, for the titular questions. Fans, do you think this show deserved a second season? We think not. Short and sweet. If the actor himself became disappointed with the scripts, then maybe it is best it ended before fans became disappointed too, especially since years later, when a fan of Kolchak made X-Files. It had more plausible storylines and better fleshed out characters. In the view of some fans, a spiritual sequel perhaps was the best way for us to bid adieu to the Nightstalker.
What is it?
A poignant 2013 show in the age of emerging AI. Fans have loved the fact that at heart, Almost Human is a character-driven and emotional buddy cop story, dealing with accepting loss and relearning trust. All these are important in this show, where a cop returns after an extended medical leave. Why was he on leave? Because he and his human partner were ambushed, and their synthezoid left to fight elsewhere. Wait, synthezoid? Like Vision? Yes. These were robots with advanced links to computers and fighting abilities made to assist cops. Of course, after you lose your partner to an ambush that you feel could have been prevented if your synthezoid didn't bail, you aren't going to like being partnered with one. The show is this journey of the human and robot cop learning to work together, developing his characters, and the interesting cases they crack. Yet, the show was canceled due to low ratings that couldn't justify the high production costs. Such is the media. While some fans requested the show not be canceled, others have said that Almost Human was almost there in terms of delivery, but missed the mark by a little. Yet others have called it perfect. Does the show deserve a second season? Considering fans requested it not be canned, we would say yes. The world needs more shows that are about recognizing humanity and character development after all. Though, I can tell you something. Our next show, despite its reference ceiling, definitely deserved a season or two more. It's classical after all, and who doesn't love space westerns, Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and of course,
You can't do.
Firefly. Firefly is another space western that premiered in 2022. Fans have noted that while Mandalorian has some similarities to a space western, it was Firefly that truly embodied the genre. With the in-universe explanation of Firefly pioneering planets on the outer edge of civilization, it could visit planets aka sets that were made like the American West. And boy did the cast dress the part. Fans have also noted Wheaton's witty writing and plots, especially those centered around a female lead, in his trademark style. This style also occurred in Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. What do you think, fans? Can you see the resemblance in the shows? The show is essentially about the Firefly crew and their adventures in an attempt to survive while fighting elements like the Reaver. Now, corporate at Fox said that the ratings were too low to justify the budget, but fans believe the show wasn't given a fair chance. The theme of the show is social bonds and groups, as well as the attempts people have to survive and the adventures and obstacles that come their way. The love for these plot lines shows in the reviews fans have left for the show, such as calling it one of the most realistic post-war shows, with sci-fi elements such as spaceships, and other futuristic ideas like a coalition government called the Alliance, which has merged the USA and Canada. Others have called it beautifully crafted. Did Firefly deserve a second season? For sure. Any show that has such a cultural following deserved to be reignited when the science fiction genre became mainstream, like Doctor Who did. Doctor Who reminds me of another science fiction show that lasted a single season, but has a brilliant plot on paper. Sure, it's not time travel, but it is about the future. Yep, we are talking about Flash Forward, a 2009 American TV series based on the 1999 novel by the same name. Flash Forward is about a mysterious event that causes almost the whole of humanity to black out, and instead see visions of what happens exactly 6 months in the future, aka a flash forward. The best part? One of these people who experience the mysterious phenomenon is the FBI agent, assigned to investigate the phenomenon. And what does he and his team do? Use his knowledge of the investigation's future to reverse engineer their work. Genius. There is also a lot of personal fallout of the phenomenon, and of course, there are bad guys to fight and suspects to investigate. Sounds fun. Despite this, the ratings were low, and since the show didn't have major stars, ABC put it on the media chopping block. So, what do fans think of this show? They thought it was a great show canceled too soon. After all, the show had deeper themes. Fans sensed ideas such as what happens when we know the outcome of our actions before we have even taken the action. Should the show have had a second season? Fan reactions say yes, especially since some said it could be a replacement for Lost.
Bob, wait! We were singing Christmas carols and all.
Voyagers. The Doctor and his companions traveled through time, but fans note that apart from this, time travel was relatively unknown in 80s media, except for two characters called Boggs and Jones, from a 1982 show called The Voyagers, using a malfunctioning Omni machine, which is a golden pocket watch-looking handheld time machine, and a guidebook. Boggs was on a mission unknown to the audience, while trying to save Jones's life after Boggs accidentally knocks the former out of a window. The two end up time traveling from 80s New York to the Nile in 1450 BC. The worst part? The Omni can't go beyond the 70s, which means Jones cannot return home. The duo travel through time righting wrongs and keeping history on track, which Boggs couldn't do alone because he didn't pay attention in his classes. Lucky that he ended up accidentally stealing the history professor's son, eh? That's Jones. While the show was episodic and not very realistic in many terms, the message was on point. History can be found in A Voyage to the Public Library. Like Doctor Who wanted to promote science, Voyagers focused on history. And boy, did fans feel the show deserved more screen time to answer the questions it left them with. Though, as always, executive choices tanked the show because they wanted to replace it with another show they thought would do better. Sigh. How often do we forget media is an industry? Next up, we have a show that needs no introduction. A show that fans have said utilizes point-of-view storytelling to examine narratives and is unabashed about what it is. Yep, we are talking about The Watchman. Not a straight adaptation. This 2019 show opens strong according to white fans. It shows one of the worst moments of American history and racial violence, which lends to using the superhero lens to comment on today's power dynamics, especially in terms of race. Basically, this adaptation of Alan Moore's Watchmen turned the superhero genre on its head, and boy, did fans love it. It's dark and gritty, but not like Batman vs. Superman was. No, it's a show that tells traditional superhero stories, but grounds them. Who's Batman? Is he a philanthropist? Or does he beat up the Joker because he's struggling mentally himself and just wants to feel like he's doing something good? How much power do we have at the end of the day? In the era of climate change, other than kaiju movies like Pacific Rim, this is one show that puts heroes on the back foot against something they can't punch and solve. In this show, we follow Rorschach, a masked vigilante who is investigating the death of another superhero, which leads him to find a deep-seated conspiracy involving the super's shared past, which can have far-reaching disastrous consequences on the future of the world. Did it deserve a second season? Despite how well-loved the show was, we would say no. Some stories are meant to be told in a succinct manner, such as, say, The Kenobi Show. But then there are shows whose hiatus is like that of your fanfic, abrupt, painful, and forever. But once in a while, the writer will return to a dwindling fan base. Yes, we are talking about Caprica, a prequel for Battlestar Galactica. This 2010 show was canceled after 9 episodes, and when it returned to deliver the remainder of the first season and hastily wrap up its storyline, fans weren't into it. After all, why invest in something that won't go anywhere? On top of this, despite the stellar world building, many fans felt that the show's main plot was lost in a series of unrelated and unnecessary details. Yet the show has been called worth a watch. Of course, due to low ratings and high production costs, the show got the axe. The theme, fans say, is the same as Battlestar Galactica, of a civilization on the brink of crisis. Perhaps that's why fans love the convoluted show and think it's a stellar piece axed too soon, just like our next show. Now and Again, a 1999 American science fiction series. This one calls to mind Meg Cabot's Airhead series, but is more sinister. The US government is trying to engineer the perfect body for espionage, their own Peggy Carter, if you will. Only, the brain is a tricky organ to work out, especially that of a spy. So they take the brain out of a dead body and place it in their creation. The new mind belongs to Michael, who longs to return to his family, despite the threats the government has put on him and the training he has now received. There's also his wife and daughter struggling with insurance on the side, a grounded story despite its fantastical elements. Now and Again seems to be a piece that'll make your hair rise. As always, low ratings that couldn't justify production costs sounded the death knell on this show. With its theme of what drives people and how far they'll go, fans have had some opinions on the media piece. They have legit called everything else garbage in light of this show for one. So yes, it does deserve a second show where we can see what happens to Michael. Also, interesting is the question of whether Lisa and their daughter can get to safety. What do you think, fans? Plus, there's the small matter of the escaped supervillain. Just a teeny thing, am I right? On our list of shows that were put on the chopping block way too soon is the next one. Harsh Realm. After all, this 1999 show did not even make it to half the season, despite all the hype. The show got pre-production, or perhaps because of it. As fans say, the cancellation of this piece became a media circus. After all, no one can say that the show was bad, based on just 3 episodes, so we can agree it was canceled due to external influence. But what was the show's plot? Adapted from a comic book, because such wacky and awesome plots are often found in comics. This show is a trip. An army man about to retire and get married is sent on a secret mission in a VR world that he can't escape from, reminding us of some recent incident. Well, let it be. And this is despite help from mysterious forces. In the real world, despite being told he died on the secret mission, his fiancée gets aid to discover the truth about him being part of a game. The name of the VR? Harsh Reality. Fun, ain't it? This show definitely deserved more screen time, if fans are to be believed, especially since the plot never even got the chance to take off, let alone shine. This show makes us question, in this age of media being in the hands of corporations, what is storytelling going to be? But moving away from the deep questions, we have our next show. However, it too has unresolved mysteries all centered around a question that asks, who am I?
Who are you? What's your name?
John Doe, a 2002 series that ended too soon. John Doe is a detective show about an amnesiac man who knows everything but his identity. Obsessing over a missing girl, whose image is the only one he saw in color, he gets together with detectives to save her from her father, but doesn't know why he saw her image in color or who the woman screaming Tommy at him was. The theme of the show is, of course, mystery, identity, and what we can contribute. It seems something that fans love and call exciting. Perhaps that is why we all want a second season, or maybe just to get answers. Who knows? Let us know what you think the fandom needs in the comments. Until then, we have yet another banger for you. The Middleman, a quirky 2008 show that fans loved. Middleman is about a writer who struggles to pay the rent, seeing how calm she is in response to weird, tentacle-natured alien being-related problems. The Middleman hires her to work alongside him and his robot to fight vampires, ghosts, and other such entities, filled with pop culture references that delight fans. This show has been called an acquired taste by some and one of the best pieces of media by others. And honestly, we think this is where New Who got Donna Noble from. Who's the Middleman? He's a mysterious American superhero, played by Keeslar. So, should this work have gotten more eyeballs and screen time with its wacky premise? We would say yes. Fans deserved more than a comic book as the last episode, regardless of how low the ratings were. Our next show has made it into many lists of canceled science fiction works. While critics say it would delight 70s and 80s geeks, they don't consider it essential watching. Despite this, we think the plot has riz. The Phoenix. An alien is found entombed in a suspended animation with a mysterious Phoenix amulet powered by the sun and a task that he has forgotten. He must find his companions and fight both authorities and evil aliens before his show gets the axe. While fans have called it a forgotten masterpiece, it came out during a time when science fiction was seen as too niche and for freaks alone, meaning it never stood a chance. While shows like Buffy and Doctor Who made returns when science fiction became mainstream, the 1982 show, The Phoenix, despite being preceded by a movie, remained lost. Sad, fans would have probably enjoyed seeing where this generic yet fun premise could have gone. Yet, science fiction doesn't necessarily have it easier in the 21st century. After all, our next show was canceled after only a season in 2011. Was it bad? Was it external factors? Let's take a look at it. Teranova. It is a 2011 show that has time travel, dinosaurs, a post-apocalyptic world, and separatists. While the premise of farmers fighting dinos is intriguing, there are much better dino shows out there. With what fans have called a generic set of characters and an unrealistic plot, this wasn't the best show. Yet, it kept some people on the edge of their seats and hooked to the television. Fans seem to have loved it despite all its flaws, clamoring for a second season. What was the great plot that demanded such adoration? In the future, the world is about to end, so a family of farmers transport themselves back several million years, where human colonies are trying to start civilization anew. For once, it wasn't the rating that axed the show after dinos broke into the future. Nope, it had a high production cost and a story too grand for television. Well, some lose because they're bad, some lose because they're too good. And this fell somewhere in the middle, perhaps. Moving on. Debris, a 2011 show with an emotional core, inspired by X-Files and Fringe. Debris was an investigation about alien matters cropping up all over the world. While fans have said that it has convoluted jargon and the pilot seemed to be deliberately vague, they also realized that was part of the show's charm, which means it deserved more screen time in most fans' eyes, despite some who called it a knockoff. Why was it axed? Well, experts say that's because it failed to connect with audiences and thus had low ratings. While fan reviews seem to say the opposite, it is likely that the positive reviews are written by those who fell for the show while a majority simply swiped away. The theme of the show is similar to that of detective buddy cop shows, or so we feel from the plot, but it could be deeper had it gone on longer, right? Yet it be what it be. This means it's time for the last show on our list. Out of This World, a 1962 British TV series, with only one episode surviving today. Out of This World's plots lived up to the name. It's an anthology series. Each episode was introduced by Boris Karloff in the spin-off from Armchair Theater series, with plots ranging from self-exploding robots to adventures in space. Think of the current science fiction show, Black Mirror, and boy are both the shows deep. For example, one episode of Out of This World has a stowaway on a rocket ship, Lee, only her mass is unaccounted for, causing the shop to run out of fuel. Is that realistic? Is it not? Let us know in the comments, while we share what fans think of that end. Of course, the show was a product of the 60s space race, and unlike other shows that languish in obscurity due to bad material, fans feel this isn't the case with this anthology. Out of This World, especially the exploding robot episode, according to fans, brought a fresh perspective, though we are wondering if that freshness would still be new today, or have similar tropes taken over. Would the Gen Z viewer find Out of This World generic? Well, you let us know, right fans? Until then, it's a wrap. But like all good science fiction, our wrap drive needs a little true loving care. So let's take a pit stop on the dual sons of A Marvelous Review. Science fiction as a genre has immense potential to add to society. Shows like Love, Death, and Robot, or anthologies like Black Mirror, can hold a mirror to society, but at the same time, it is science taken to the extremes of probability. Is Westworld relevant in the age of emerging AI, or is it contributing to the fear of artificial intelligence? Science fiction requires stories to tell us borderline fantastical tales, while still confined to the rules of our world. And while science fantasy and genres, like space western, can take new spins on this or even deviate, most good science fiction has the jargon, the setting, the tropes, and the space or robots or labs classic science fiction brought to our homes. Want to see some hard science fiction? We have a video for that too, which means you should subscribe for more comic and movie content. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.